Hi, my name is Jackson Davis. I am a Colorado Parks and Wildlife District Wildlife Manager. My job entails law enforcement, education, and wildlife management. Within that involves checking hunters, for example, providing comment for towns and cities, providing biological data, evidence, whatever I can, to local groups, could be government groups, nonprofit groups, so on, to protect the wildlife in our area. My specific jurisdiction is the Larimer County and Weld County, and I'm the District Wildlife Manager for the Greeley North District. So while I cover both counties, I am directly responsible for the relationships with the local government entities and groups, user groups, for example, like the Poudre Trail Coalition, for building those relationships within those districts and taking charge of meeting landowners and understanding the wildlife and their movements within my district. Like I said, I do law enforcement, I do education, I do wildlife management. Sometimes that looks like me going to schools and providing education. Again, sometimes that means checking hunters. Other times that means going out and doing surveys, flying in helicopters, hiking up mountains, looking for bighorn sheep, elk maybe I'm looking for swift fox at all times of day and all times of year. So one of the most important things about choosing your pack or picking up packs is figuring out something that fits you. You don't necessarily need the fanciest, most expensive bag. It's good to have something that can repel rain at least a little bit. Having something with cotton on it's not really going to do you any good if you go through some sort of rainstorm. It's going to weigh you down, and having any of that moisture on your skin can actually lead to hypothermia, especially in colder temperatures. So having a pack that will minimize that sort of contact with water and keeping it on there. So I just have a relatively cheap pack here. You'll see some expensive packs will have straps, which I'll show on my backpacking backpack later, that'll cinch really tight on your waist to kind of add support. But on a day pack, you know, you're not carrying the same weight and the same load as a backpacking backpack, so you don't really need to have that bigger pack. If you want to splurge, it can make it more comfortable, but it's not necessary. One of the most important things to have, and the first thing that you want to pack and have ready when you are backpacking or day hiking, is having a water system, right? So whether it is a hydro pack like this, a Camelback or something along that lines, or a series of water bottles. Sometimes you can have a hard water bottle like a plastic Nalgene, or you can have collapsible soft ones. You want to have enough water to last you at least for the day. So generally, even if it's just a day hike for me, I'm going to carry at least a 3-liter water pack with me. And most backpacks will have a little section for you to put that water pack in and clip it down. That way it's not moving up and down. And you can put it through one of the sides of the backpack. That way you always have water available to you. And now it's important to note this as well. It doesn't matter what temperature it is outside, you need to stay hydrated. If it's cold or if it's warm, you still need hydration. If you're hiking in the wintertime, day pack or backpacking, you still need to have water because you're going to be sweating. You need to replace those water and electrolytes is what you need to have in you. And so if you do not have proper hydration, you could get dehydrated, and especially on a hot day, that's not going to end up well for you. So making sure that you have your water set up. And again, it's nice to have another water bottle with you, maybe one that's easier to carry, or if you have a water bottle like this, you can store things in it until you get to camp if you're backpacking. An important thing to remember too with these sort of backpacks is that you want as much weight on the back of it. So the way that works is, if you think about the physics of it, if you have a long lever and you have something that is tight to your back and some light stuff outside of it, you're going to have a better weight distribution. But if you have heavy things on the outside and light things against your back, you're going to tilt, which is going to make it uncomfortable to hike first and foremost, but it can also make it dangerous on steep and dangerous terrain. Slick terrain is not a good time to have something pulling your center of balance off. So these packs already have the water bottles and the water packs pushed against the back where it's going to meet your back. And we're going to follow that principle. So the next most important thing in my mind is having a medical kit. There's plenty of medical kits. You can make your own, you can buy some at stores. But essentially, having something that has wound care in it, whether it is you're out hiking and you get a pretty good gash and you need to cover yourself, or you're out for a couple of days and you get some small scratches, but you do want to keep those clean, to the point where you could also have things for massive bleeding. And the thing I recommend folks do is having a belt when they go out hiking. Even if your pants fit fine, having a loose belt is still useful, because if you need an emergency tourniquet, your belt's going to do a lot better than trying to make something with some clothes and some sticks. So having a medical pack is essential, and you're going to put it at the top of your pack. Again, you can look up what folks would recommend for your packs. You don't necessarily have to have everything that is in this medical kit. You can have more if you want as well, but having things like ointments, having some sort of band-aids, typically having some sort of gauze in case there is a larger gash is important. Some kits will come with splints in case there is a broken bone that you want to keep in place. They can have other things as well, like quick clot and so on, which you don't necessarily need to have, but if you would like to, you can. But for most people's purposes, having the base pain medication, ointments, bandages, gauze is going to be enough for you. But whatever you're comfortable with is what you should have. So again, when we're packing this day pack, we have to talk about weight and weight distribution, which is going to be very different from a backpacking backpack. So we want to add the weight as we can, but recognize that it's not going to be the same. We'll go over that with the backpacking backpack. Another important piece is having a compass and having a map. So most folks are still fairly reliant on their GPS, and GPS is a very great tool. You can find lots of different mapping softwares that use GPS. However, things with batteries die, whether or not you've taken good care of it or not. And so having a compass and having a map is crucial. Learning how to use a compass can be a bit daunting sometimes. It's fairly straightforward once you get into it, but the real purpose of having that map is if you get lost and you have a detailed enough map, you can get a good general idea of where you are. And in an instance where, let's say you slide down a drainage and you need to find your way back up and now you're kind of disoriented, you can work your way back up to a high point and try and identify on these maps, a high peak, or if you recognize some peaks in the area, recognizing that topography, you use these maps with your ability to create or find landmarks. Typically, a landmark being a hill or a peak, and then you'll use your compass to help you get back. They also have classes online that you can watch on how to use your compass, which I'd highly recommend you do. Even if it's just a day hike and the trail is well marked, what you're preparing for is not the perfect day, you're preparing for the worst day. And being prepared for that worst day is going to have you coming home, or at least having people find you. Which brings up the next topic, is if you can share either the map or the trail at the minimum of where you're going with at least one other person who's not going with you, that's an important pre-trip safety measure to take, right? Whether it's one of your parents or it's a close friend, let them know what time you're gonna go, what time you're going to get back, and where you are going to be. If it's a backpacking trip, you might have a couple of stops on the way. So maybe marking, I want to go start at this part of the trail, I'm going to be going about 6 miles in, and that's day one. And then on day two, I'm going to be going 3 miles in. And if you're coming back on day 3, they'll know, okay, somewhere between point 0 and point 2, that person could be lost there in case something were to happen. Again, it keeps people informed and also keeps your loved ones comfortable, right? We live in a world now where it's really easy to talk to people either through phone, instant messaging, social media. And so giving people and yourself that peace of mind that if something happens, people know where to find you is going to make it a lot faster to find you in a case that happens. So like I said before, GPS units are great. They're also pretty expensive. It's certainly not something that I would say a new backpacker or a tourist would need to have with them, but it is a good investment. The type of GPS unit that I have allows me to send messages to folks, updating them where I'm at, when I've left for the trip, when I've gotten to a campsite or a stopping point, and when I'm working back. Again, they're very expensive, and so they're not necessary, but they can be useful. And a lot of the times your phone also has GPS on it too. There are apps like Cotrex that Colorado Parks and Wildlife has developed that you can use that will help you find where you are. You might not have service or your phone might die, but it can be useful. With that as well comes conversations about taking care of your skin and preventing sunburns, and having, again, pain medication. So I will carry pain medication inside my bag, but I also carry some outside with me in the case that something happens and I don't have time to get into my pack. I usually have it somewhere up front. Having sunscreen is super important. Last thing you want to do is get a pretty bad sunburn when you're out and about. And even during the winter, the snow is going to reflect a lot of sun, which can increase your chance of getting a sunburn. So wearing that sunscreen is important. Having a lip balm that is also an SPF rated lip balm is useful. And having a hat and long shirts is useful as well, right? So on a day hike, you're not necessarily going to need the same amount of food or the same type of food as you would have when you're backpacking. And so at the minimum, if it's a short hike, I'm carrying a couple of different snack bars with me, maybe an energy bar or energy gel or something along those lines to kind of keep me going. It's a good idea to pack a lunch in, of course. Even if you're planning on being down the mountain, having that there is useful, and having enough food for another day. Things can happen, and while we can go quite a while without needing food, it's still useful to have another source of food in case you do get lost and you need to keep yourself fed. And that can take the form of dehydrated food if you want to pack in a stove, or again, it can be things like you pack yourself an emergency peanut butter and jelly sandwich or something along those lines. One of the most important things to have with you, doesn't matter if you know it's going to be a perfectly sunny day. We live in Colorado. Weather is going to change really quickly. Especially at high elevation, storms come really quickly, they come fast, they can be pretty intense. Having rain gear is incredibly important. It's going to keep you warm if you do get cold as well. Wearing something like this is going to keep you dry, which will keep you warm, prevent hypothermia, which you can get any time of year technically, but it can be especially important on those colder days. And it's just a good base layer to have. It's easy to put on, easy to take off. Something that you're going to have on top of your pack. And it's good to have a rain jacket and rain pants. And on that same vein is preparing for different weather, right? So having a base layer, a mid layer, and outer shells are important. So in this case, I have a puffy jacket that is going to be a pretty good mid layer. It's going to keep me warm. I'm definitely going to use this in the fall and the spring. Down jackets are sensitive. You don't want to wash them the same way that you'd wash your other clothes. And you don't really want to get them wet, which is why pairing them with your rain jacket's incredibly important. But having a down jacket's going to keep you warm. I have another base layer here, which is a wool blend. Wool is actually very good at repelling water, and it does keep you warm as well. And so I will pack both of these. It doesn't matter if it is a 90-degree day outside or if it is a really cool day outside, you know, a 20 to 30-degree day. I'm still gonna have both of these with me. On those colder days, I might have another outer shell to keep me extra dry and extra warm. Again, Colorado weather changes very quickly, and as you go up in elevation, the temperature drops, and you wanna be comfortable throughout your day. I'll also carry a hat or a beanie with me. Typically, I am wearing a hat when I'm out there anyway, but having a beanie as well that can hold a little bit more heat on your head is important. We do lose a lot of heat through our head, through exposed skin as well, and so just being able to cover all those bases is important. I also carry a trowel with me, I carry hand sanitizer, and I carry toilet paper with me that I put in the bag. You don't have to have an entire roll of toilet paper. And it's good to have biodegradable toilet paper because most commercial toilet papers are not designed to end up in nature. They're designed to go through a waste management facility. But having this trowel is useful, right? And it's more than useful for using the facilities outdoors. On the case that you need to create a fire or you need to create an emergency shelter, having something like this can be useful. It's very lightweight. They make them lightweight and small for a reason, but it's a good thing to have. Another thing that's useful is going to be your hand sanitizer. If you know you're going to be out and back, maybe having just a small thing, hand sanitizer is useful. If you want that peace of mind, using soap, a small soap canister, or if you have a small bar can be useful too. And it may seem overkill, but having a way to make yourself more water is also crucial when you're out either backpacking or on a day hike. Again, it's preparing more for the worst scenario than it is preparing for the best day possible. And maybe you've had a really hot day and you've been drinking quite a bit of water and you get up to where your day hike ends, or you get to the middle of your day hike and you realize you're out of water. On those hot days, again, it's super crucial to be hydrated. So you can have a couple of different systems. There's systems such as this one where you will place a water bottle that you fill, such as this filtration system. You'd attach it to the actual filter, which is this part here, and you would squeeze this plastic bag and it would push water through. Now, a lot of these kits will come with multiple bags, and it's important that you always label one of them as a dirty bag and a clean bag. If you do decide to drink out of one of these bags, regardless, it's important to write down something like the D on this cap that shows that it's dirty. That way you don't contaminate water sources. You don't accidentally drink straight from a creek or a stream, because that can get you sick. It's also a good idea to have other methods and backups with you. They have UV sticks, UV lights that you can use that can kill bacteria in a handful of minutes. They make iodine pills as well, which are a lot smaller than this big setup that I have. And they have other types of filtration systems that are more than squeeze. They have pump ones as well. And again, you're preparing yourself for the worst day. So it's an important thing to have. Whatever method you're comfortable having, choose that method, but have some way to make yourself more water. The last thing you want to have is no water on a incredibly warm day. An important thing for backpacking and for hiking is wearing appropriate clothing. Like I said, for your actual backpack, one of the last things you want to have is cotton, is these really thick, really hydrophilic materials, because it's going to weigh you down in the sense that you're going to have water on you. Again, you could get hypothermia. Having something made out of polyester, things that are going to wick moisture away from you, is important, right? Luckily, these are fairly inexpensive. You don't have to go and get something fancy. You just need something that's going to wick away moisture. For your shirt, for example, you can have pants that are quick dry that are made of the same materials. These are also really nice on those warm days that you're out hiking. They're a little bit more breathable than wearing, something like the jeans that I'm wearing now. And again, if they do get wet, they are going to dry off a lot faster, but they're going to keep it away from you. And another thing to carry with you is long underwear. Again, it's something that you might not need on a day hike, especially if you're in the summer. You might not need to have long underwear. It's a good thing to carry with you, but it's definitely something you need to have when you start getting into the fall, winter, and the spring. It gets pretty cold up in the mountains. Snow can happen anytime once you start getting into that fall period. Most long underwears are made of some sort of wool. They also have silk long underwear, which can actually help you stay cool during the summer. They have tops and they have bottoms. It's a good idea to have both when you're out. Again, not necessary for a day hike, but something to consider. Another thing that's important to have is another pair of socks. So when you're out and about hiking, you want to have a good sock that is going to wick away moisture, just like you're going to have for your shirt, just like you're going to have for your pants. If you're out and about, you're sweating through your feet, it's not going to be very comfortable. Having the right thickness of sock is going to be crucial too. You don't want to wear January thick socks when you're out hiking in July. But having socks is important, and having an extra pair of socks is even more important. Again, it kind of comes back to the idea of comfort. So some things that are also important to have, which again is more preparing for a worst case scenario situation, is having some sort of fire making device, right? So that can be having matches, you know, such as this. They're waterproof matches. They're very thick and very durable. They don't look like your usual matches that you maybe light a candle at home with. In a waterproof container that also can have some sort of a starter, whether it is, cotton balls soaked in Vaseline, or, in some cases, pine needles, and having another type of fire producing device, right? So having a lighter is very useful as well. Again, lighters can run out. Same thing with your matches. So it's generally a good idea to have more than one. It's kind of a common theme, right? Having more than one thing is important when you're out and about. You should really not be making a fire unless there is an emergency reason, right? So let's say you are out and about, you get injured, and now it's getting really cool. And you're out day hiking, and you didn't bring a tent with you because you were only gonna go on a couple mile hike, it's getting dark. Making a fire then would make sense, right? That's a life or death sort of scenario, and you can tend to that fire because you're gonna be near that fire potentially all night to stay warm. Making a fire just for the fun of it, and not having enough water to put it out, or just leaving it, is how we have forest fires. So really we should be treating creating fire as a survival tool more so than just something to do when you're out and about, especially when you're day hiking.
Thanks for watching another episode of Wreck Yourself. I'm your host, James Gould. I'm Professor of Tourism Management at the University of Northern Colorado. I hope we've inspired you to explore. And of course, feel free to check out the links below for specific information on recreation resources, our guests, and our partners. Also, be sure to hit like and subscribe. Until we see you next time, be sure to wreck yourself.